Hello, everyone. Welcome to William in the Magic Box. Today on our show, we are going to have David. David is from California, but he lives in Berlin, in Germany. So let's see what David has to say. Enjoy the interview. Okay. So, how
Okay.
are you, David?
I'm good. I'm actually getting over a week of being sick, so my voice is not fantastic right now.
Oh my God. So, what happened?
I don't know, you get sick. It's I've been gone for 3 months and I came back to Berlin and I think I went from 3 months in the tropics. I was in India and Vietnam and then suddenly I was in Berlin and it was 0 degrees and gray and cold. It's beautiful today, but it's generally not.
In London, it's a beautiful day today as well. Today it's been warm. Today was the first day that I didn't have a jacket on. I could walk just with a t-shirt for the first day
Oh,
of the.
nice, nice, nice.
So where are you from, David?
I'm from. I keep wanting to manage the. Okay, there we go. Originally I'm from California, but I lived in New York for 5 years, and now I live in Berlin. And yeah, I'm a Californian through and through.
So why the change from California to New York and now Berlin?
Uh, well, let's see. It was 2009, and you may recall 2009 was a very interesting year, and mine was even more interesting than a lot of people's. And I had a lot of personal things happen all at once, and it just completely it was either going to destroy me or I was going to bounce. And so I bounced to New York. And yeah, I mean, it was a crazy year. I lost both my parents, my two oldest friends, my house, my relationship, and my job all in 4 months.
Oh my God! Wow, that's a lot
Yeah,
to take. It's a lot to
yeah.
take. Yes.
So, yeah, so yeah, so I was like, okay, so I think that I'm going to move to New York now. And it was a great decision. I mean, it worked out really well. And I was in New York, and then I was traveling for about 5 years after I left New York. And another relationship ended in New York, and so I started traveling again. And so I was just traveling, and I was kind of bouncing around and having a great time. And then COVID came, and I just happened to be in Northern California, in my hometown, Sacramento, to perform some shows and to record an album. And the shows got canceled, and I couldn't go into the studio with any of the musicians. So I ended up in an attic in a friend's house, in a sort of warehouse attic, which was much nicer than it sounds. And I ended up finishing a book and doing and exercising a lot, and I actually had a great lockdown. Although the town was completely torn apart by Black Lives Matter, and we had like helicopters and riots and the whole thing. It was pretty wild, but it was also, I mean, it was an amazing time, right? I mean, 2020, death to 2020. But and then when August came around, or July, August, I was like, I left here a long time ago. I can't stay here any longer. And so I went back to New York, and New York was completely shut down and also very damaged. And so I actually I actually was with a friend and went to a party and did a bunch of mushrooms and decided to move to Berlin. And so here I am 3 years later.
Wow!
So,
Wow! And
that's how life has gotten. My life is the opposite of how my life in this point of my life has been like most people's lives in their 20s are, second adolescence.
no, I think life, life, it's full of surprises, and
Yeah.
life takes us in directions that you're not expecting, and sometimes you don't see the message straight away, but when you kind of work it out, through the challenge journey, you go like, okay, now I understand more or less why life took me in this direction.
Yeah, yeah. And you gotta go with it. Or, I mean, if you try to fight and hang on to things too hard, I mean, there's certain things obviously that are well worth hanging on to, but mine boiled down to real estate and jobs, and I was like, okay, I don't need to hang on to either of those things, you know.
Yeah.
So,
Yes, I think sometimes you just need to learn how to navigate through life, isn't it?
yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the whole game. It's like surfing, you know, you got to surf the waves. And I actually did a show about it when I was in New York. I wrote a one-man show that was about that period of time. And as I recall, I rewrote the ending so many times I don't remember what the actual ending is now, but I think it was kind of a surfing metaphor at the end, because it was called the 100-Year Flood, and it's about it's a metaphor, but it's also a thing that is a fear in Sacramento, which Sacramento is one of the 3 cities in the world that's most likely to flood, along with Amsterdam and New Orleans, and we know what happened in New Orleans. And so, but it turned out that the 100-Year Flood was a flood of real estate debt, and that's what happened in 2008, 2009. So that's what my show is about, but it's also about my father dying, and just about how you have to surf. You have to surf the changes, you know, and you have to be willing to let go of a lot of things, and they're not people, you know, and not all the good things in yourself, but, you know, just the things, the extra things, the stuff that doesn't matter, you know?
Absolutely. Right. So I know that you are a singer, a songwriter, and a journalist. So tell me a little bit, walk me through a little bit about your career.
I started, I got my first paycheck for a review when I was 16.
Wow.
And I started writing for sort of a hippie newspaper in the 70s. And I was a music critic from the time I was 16 years old. And I ended up making that my career 10 years later. And then at the Sacramento Bee, which is the main newspaper in Northern California outside of the Bay Area. And really great paper, and had 25 years there, and got, you know, had a great career, a fantastic place and people, and a really good paper. And I learned how to be a writer and journalist, and I got Paul McCartney to do my answering machine message, and I met Joni Mitchell, and you know, good things. And I went on tour with a rock band, and I've done lots of different things, like fun things. And I just got to a certain point where I was like, I'm done. And so I quit, just out of the blue. And then I sort of did a blog for a while because I didn't know what else to do. So I did a blog and freelanced, and then somebody saw my blog and was starting something that was kind of like my blog, but bigger, which was called the Sacramento Press, which was a citizen journalism website. So we're sort of teaching people in the community to be journalists, and which is easier said than done. And it gave me an appreciation for journalism and for what we actually do. And after a very short period of time, I sort of insisted to the owner, I just said, look, you have got to hire a few journalists to anchor this thing, or we're not going to be a serious thing, because, you know, it's a craft and an art and a skill set, and people just don't automatically have it, you know. So we did that, but it was very good. But it was very expensive to run, and, you know, it's in journalism, and things were falling apart pretty consistently at that point, you know, 2008, 2009. So and then I started working for NPR, doing a radio show in Sacramento, also at the local NPR affiliate. And I did that for a little while, not very long, several months. And I loved doing that. But at that point, I'd already decided to move to New York. So moved to New York. And did my one-man show in New York, and did music and writing. And I started writing about Japan when I was in New York. And that's how I ended up writing my book. Oh, yeah. Might as well do this.
Japan from anime to Zen. Anime to Zen,
like A to Z.
Wow.
So it's a collection of stuff that I wrote for a company in Japan, and then I collected it all together and sent it to a publisher in Berkeley, California, and they published it. So that came out year and a half ago. But of course, Japan's been closed until very recently, and I haven't been back since I finished it, or since it was published. So I'm really looking forward to going back. Hopefully this November or so is the plan.
Wow.
Yeah, they just opened up just a few months ago. So,
one of my desire, or one of my top list of my bucket list is to go to Japan. Always fascinated about the country, about the culture itself.
Yeah, people who are into it are really into it.
Yeah.
It's good.
So Dave, during the journey, I'm going to explore a little bit more about your career, about your life and your point of views, okay? Are you ready to go on a beautiful journey through your memories in life and to share your point of views?
Yeah.
Amazing. Welcome to William and the Magic Box. So this is my... box, okay, full of random questions. I'm just going to play a song now just for us to relax a bit before the first question, okay?
Okay.
So let's do it then. Let's do it.
Okay.
Right, David. So before we start the journey, during the show, if it comes up a question that you don't want to talk about for some reason, you don't want to answer, always can change, okay?
Okay. And you edit everything then, so
yeah, I'm gonna eat afterwards. Yeah, if something that we talk about that maybe you can, I always can take it out afterwards, okay?
Okay.
Right. First question for you is, what motivates the most in life?
Other people.
Tell me about
relationships, knowing people, getting to know people, meeting new people. I travel a lot. I live in a country that's not my own, and I have just always been interested in other people. I think it's my father was like that, and he was always just fascinated by other people's backgrounds. And living in Berlin, and I spent time in London, and I lived in New York, and you just meet people from everywhere, And Europe is especially that way. But I was also just in Vietnam for a couple of months, in Saigon. And I met so many people from so many different places there, And I just love hearing people's stories. Everybody has a different story. And I mean, it's, I would say that's probably my greatest motivation in life, and my friends and music, of course. And writing.
And do you see yourself...
Words are a big deal for me as well.
And do you see yourself living in Berlin for a long while?
I've lived in Berlin. It'll be 3 months or 3 years this summer. Yeah.
And you planning to stay there for another few years, or?
Yeah, my visa is up in November, and I want to extend it because I like being in Europe. I like Europe. I could live in New York again, but I don't know if I could live anywhere else in the States again. I generally like to be in different places in the course of the year, though. I like to be in Japan, in Kyoto, particularly. I love Saigon, and I love London and New York and Berlin and Italy. So I tend to bounce around quite a bit. So no matter what happens, if I end up not being able to stay here, I don't know why that would happen, but it's all possible. I would just continue traveling and living in different places because that's what I love.
Amazing. Very good. Next question. Let's do it.
Okay.
Hey, David, next question is, good question. Which talent do you wish you had?
Which what do I wish I had?
Which talent?
Talent. That's a good one.
You are full of talent.
Yeah, I've got more than I can handle. The first thing I thought of was I wish I were a better guitar player, but I play well enough to communicate my songs, so that's okay. Okay, the next one that springs to mind is that I wish I were a good surfer. Going back to our our discussion before of the metaphorical surfing, I actually went to Mexico once with some friends to Baja, Mexico, and tried to surf for a week. But they told me I didn't need to take lessons. And so I just sort of went out with them, and they're like master surfers, and they didn't really teach me. And so it was a disaster for 5 days. I ended up just getting completely beaten up, and I was too stupid to figure out that maybe I should kind of come in and start over again and learn the basics, which I never did. But it was fun just getting out there and just getting banged around. And I mean, it was ridiculous. The only picture I have from the entire week is of me lying just on the sand with the surf coming in, completely exhausted. That's my memory of that. But hanging out at night in the palapas and drinking beer and having a good, talking people again, lots of people from different places, and so it was awesome. But I'm a crap surfer, and I would really like to be able to do that. I think that would be great.
Amazing. I cannot surf either. For sure.
Also piano player. I wish I could play piano.
Wow. All right. Next question.
Also deep diving.
And you're gonna carry on. No, there's always something.
Carry on.
Next question. Before the next question, what do you like the most about being a singer? What's the biggest joy of it? And the flip side, what's something that you find very challenging?
The thing I love about singing is I'm going to be like a broken record on here. No pun intended. Is other people. It's singing to other people. Like I never really play much to myself. What I do on my own is write songs, and that is something you kind of have to do by yourself, right? Or with another person, but I tend to do it by myself mostly. And but I don't play by myself. I never play just for myself. I have zero interest in that. I only play for other people. And so it's that feeling of when you kind of look around and people are like paying attention and connecting with you, and it's a very nice feeling. I like that a lot. Challenging is what you can hear how my voice is right now. Singing is physically challenging.
Mm-hmm.
And not so much if you do it regularly, which I was doing in Vietnam. It was great, and I hope to get back into here in Berlin because I have a new album that I need to promote. And I would say that's probably the main thing. It's just it's physically challenging, but there's not really any downside to it. Let's put it that way.
I see. David, hey, next question for you is what makes you feel discouraged?
Interesting. I don't feel discouraged very often. I guess sometimes just sort of I have so many, as you pointed out, I have so many things that I do and so many things going on. And sometimes it's just, well, I'll tell you what makes me feel discouraged is this past week, being sick has been, I don't slow down well. I don't like lie around well. And I kind of just had to do that this week, and I didn't like that. So that was kind of discouraging. I don't, sometimes other people can be discouraging a little bit, but that's not really, just don't let that affect me too much.
Yeah. I understand. Feeling sick, when you're not feeling yourself because of, something's happening with you, it's discouraging because, you cannot do much about it. You just need to, recover, relax, and just let things getting better.
Yeah. I mean, I have a Substack that I just started and I'm really into it, and I couldn't do it because I just didn't have, you gotta have some kind of inspiration, and you gotta sit at your computer and you gotta work at the writing. And I was just like, I can't do it. But I watched a lot of Netflix, which was really fun. In fact, our appointment to speak came up right as I've got like 7 minutes left in Dead to Me on Netflix, which if you haven't seen it is amazing. It's an amazing Black comedy about these two women who get into all kinds of death and destruction, and it's hilarious.
Amazing. Next question. Let's do it. Next question for you is, what do you think people need to know about each other before they start a relationship?
I think it's best to not know very much. Oh my God. I mean, the most important thing to me, I mean, obviously I need to be with somebody who's very flexible. And I don't just mean that physically. I think the most important thing that you need to know about somebody is if they're honest or not. And if they have a sense of humor. Because you're going to need both.
Totally. I think you need to somehow have some connection about, being funny or being yourself, or, taking things in a positive or funny way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's not like, because the sense of humor, it's not about being funny. It's about seeing the essential absurdity of life and being able to bounce with the crap that comes at you and just have a sense of humor about it. So that's why I love this show, Dead to Me. It's like that. They just are like, okay, this is happening now. It's like what I was talking about 2009, it's just kind of like, okay, this is happening. Right? Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Ready for another one?
Yep.
Let's do it. Next question. Before the next question, tell me what is the best part of waking up in Berlin every single morning?
Besides coffee?
Yes.
Well, I have a beautiful, I have a very, very small room in a big apartment. But I have here, I'll show you. This is where I wake up.
Right.
So I have a very nice window and I love that.
What do you like the most? What do you like the most about Berlin? What's the best part of living there?
My favorite thing is getting on my bike and riding out. Like today, I was finally feeling somewhat better. I don't sound a lot better, but I feel better. And so I rode my bike all the way out almost to Spandau, which is another town that's on the very edge of West Berlin. And I live in West Berlin. And it's just such a beautiful town. I mean, it was bombed to smithereens in 1945. So the buildings are extremely hit and miss. And there are a lot of really ugly buildings. I was in London last month and I was just amazed at how beautiful it is. The architecture in London is just spectacular. I'd forgotten that because I lived there a long time ago and I just forgotten how beautiful it is. But Berlin has so many parks and so many lakes and rivers. And I went out riding and I'm going down canals and people are boating down the canals and it's just gorgeous. And right now, of course, it's all the tulips are all out and the narcissus and the daffodils and all the flowering trees. And there are these huge areas where they have something called Kleingarten, which means small garden. And there are allotments next to the railroad tracks. And there are a lot of railroads coming in and out of Berlin. And so there are all these areas where they didn't put real houses, but they put all these areas with these tiny little cabins and then a little plot for people to farm, because after the war, they needed people, and even before the war, I guess they needed places where poor people could grow vegetables and things like that. And so now they're just these beautiful, beautiful areas. And so that's my favorite thing about Berlin. I love the nightlife is fun, the museums, the international aspect, the culture, all that stuff. But my favorite thing is getting on my bike and riding out into these gorgeous areas.
All right. Next question for you is, what scares you the most about your future?
Nothing really. I'm not looking forward to getting like super old, but I also hope to get super old. So, it's, if you're going to ask for it, then you have to deal with it when it comes, right? And I guess if I worry about anything or if I'm concerned about something, it's that I won't finish all the things that I've started, because I have a lot of projects that I really want to do. And I'm very lackadaisical in my approach to things. I'm not. I have a book. I have an album. I have another book coming. I'm going to make another album. I'm working on these different projects, and so it seems like I'm like really like, and I'm really not. I mean, I am to a degree, I guess, or it wouldn't have actually happened. But I'm very lackadaisical, and I'm very boing. I like a pinball, So it concerns me sometimes that I'm going to get too caught up in just having fun or in traveling or relationships or just all the things that you do in the course of a day, riding my bike, going to the gym, you can just kind of, so I guess that would be my concern, that I'm not going to complete all the things I want to complete before I'm like,
yeah. I think it's funny you saying that, because we always have that in our back of our minds. Just want to complete everything that we are maybe work on it, or maybe just desiring the future or something. There's always a question there. I just want to finish. I just want to get things done.
Yeah. Because I mean, yeah, I don't have kids or anything, so it's kind of my, it's my legacy, And I also am very realistic about that, in the sense it's like nobody's like really waiting for what I'm doing, It's just, but I still want to do it. And I mean, this is something I've learned too in all this time of doing these things, is that it really is about the process. It really is about the doing it. It's like even I can show you my book, and it's like, but there's not really that much excitement in that, it's much more interesting to be actually doing the whole thing and putting it together and the whole process. And that's what sort of does keep me going on all these things. Like, I mean, recorded the album and a few hundred people have heard it, but that's not enough. If it were a terrible experience to do it, that's not enough to go through that experience. But it was actually a wonderful experience doing it. And so people hearing it and people liking it or getting excited about it is total cherry on top of the actual Sunday, which is doing the work.
Right. I have 3 questions left. Okay. Let's do it. Next question is, tell us about your guilt pleasure.
My guilty pleasure. Well, I'm not a big believer in guilt. So, and my most guilty pleasure, I'm not going to tell you about.
You can tell me private. You can tell me private. Okay, you send me a message.
But what my guilty pleasure would be? Probably. I like really creamy, sweet, milky things, like ice cream and chocolate milk, and I like sugar.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, I know it doesn't. That's why I almost didn't say anything, because it's like, that is not a unique guilty pleasure. I don't really. I guess. Oh, I know. I have a guilty pleasure. Prog rock. I was listening to a Yes album today, and I was thinking, there are a lot of people that would be really embarrassed to do this, but I think they were amazing and are still amazing, and they're still around. And their music is so uplifting and beautiful and complex, and yet melodically very accessible. And their lyrics are sometimes they're like, what the hell is he talking about? And other times it's like, oh, I know what he's talking about. He's talking about something that you can hardly talk about, which is really ambitious. And I would say yes is my guilty pleasure. Plus, yes is my favorite word. So
amazing. Very good. 2 questions left. Let's do it.
Better.
For the next question, tell me a little bit about your book. How was the big inspiration for you to write your book? And at the same time as well, what was the most difficult part for you to put all together?
The book started out as a series of articles for a website in Japan. Mm-hmm. And I did it for several years, and I got to a certain point where I had like 80 or 90 of these short pieces that were really quite good and interesting, and it's an interesting subject. And I covered a lot of territory, and I looked at it and I thought, this is a book. And so I put it together in a book. I sort of divided up I collected it into 5 different sections on food, on culture, and ancient culture, new culture, history, etc. And I sent it to 2 publishers, and the second one bought it. So, it's as far as the hard part, I love writing. I love doing research. It's a fascinating subject. There wasn't really a hard part. Just doing the work, but the work is fun. I like writing.
Okay. All right. Next question is, if you could meet yourself when you were 15 years old again, which advice would you give to yourself at the time?
Oh, boy. Stop worrying about what other people think about you. Number 1. And know that you're a lot more of a badass than you have any idea that you are. And boy, it takes a really long, just be yourself, It takes a really long time to learn those lessons. Really long time. And sometimes you still have to learn them, especially the not caring about what other people think,
That's a big one.
That's a big one. But having faith in yourself, because I think too, it's like, I think a lot of us were raised in a way of not to make too much of ourselves, or not to really step into our power. It was like, oh, you're being immodest, or you're being, it's like, if you think you can do something, if you think you have a good idea to do something, just do it. It's better than you. It's probably better even than you think it is, And if it's not, you'll find out. But and you'll adjust, and you'll come up with something that is, It's all a process, and you can't. Yeah, those would be my things.
Tell me something. You mentioned that you are from Sacramento in California, yeah?
Yeah.
How was for you growing up in Sacramento? Tell me, when you think about your childhood memories growing up over there, what's the best memory that comes to your mind?
Probably also riding my bike. Music, riding my bike and music. And then when the Walkman came along, doing both at the same time. I love, that's been a constant in my life, is riding a bike and listening to music. Although sadly, over the last number of years, I've spent more time listening to the news than I have listening to music, which is just really not very useful. Music is better. Sacramento is, I really kind of grew into Sacramento. I grew up really not being that happy being there, because I always wanted to be in San Francisco or New York or London, or I always was ambitious. From like when I was 10 or 11 years old, I was ambitious to get the hell out of Sacramento, which is funny that I stayed there for most of my life. But it kept being really good to me. I had a great job, I had great friends. And it's a very livable, nice city. And as we always said growing up, it's close to everywhere. So as soon as I got a car, that was something I spent a lot of time doing as well. I was going to San Francisco, going to Marin, going to Berkeley, going to Tahoe, going to Napa, going to LA, going to the mountains, going to the desert. There's a lot you can do in California, no matter where you live. And I do miss it. I mean, that's one thing I miss being in Berlin. What I miss the most is the desert. Also, we have no mountains here. Berlin is as flat as Sacramento is. Sacramento is flat as a pancake because it's a river delta sort of area, and Berlin's exactly the same. So it's sort of ironic they ended up living in the same. London is sort of the same as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of great cities are because for obvious reasons, right? And I always I always wanted to get out of Sacramento, but I didn't for the longest time until it was the right time, you know. And I'm glad I didn't, because I built lifelong relationships that I still have there, and had a wonderful career there, and it gave me a really good launching place to be from, you know. And it's still there. I'll be going there in August when I go. I always go back around the time of Burning Man, which I usually go to. So I'll be back. I go back every year. I love it.
Amazing. Good. I would like one day to visit Sacramento. I would like to go there.
It's the oldest city. It's the oldest established city west of the Mississippi in the United States, which is 2/3 of the country. So it was because of the gold rush. Like when San Francisco was 5,000 people, Sacramento was 50,000. It was a much bigger city.
Wow.
And then San Francisco, you know, obviously took off and became a whole other thing. But Sacramento was the main city in the Western United States for a number of years. And it has the housing stock. In fact, when I lived there, I used to own this beautiful 1894 Victorian that was gorgeous. And that's one of the things I left behind. That was a tough one. But I didn't want to live in it anymore. You know, who needs to live in a huge Victorian all by himself, right? So.
Ready for the last one?
Yes.
Last question. Let's do it. Before the last question, Dave, tell me through your career, tell me a moment or, you know, a situation, or, you know, connect with your audience, something that happened in your career that you go like, you know what? That moment's always going to have a special place in my heart. I'll never forget that moment through your career.
Ooh. Oh boy. I mean, there are two things that come to mind. I mean, one is neither of them. Well, one of them is related to my career. Right as I was sort of wrapping up what turned out to be wrapping up my life in Sacramento and my career and the whole thing, I was nominated for an award by the Sacramento Business and Arts Council, something like that. And it was sort of it was where the arts and business meet. And I was at the lunch that they had, and there were 3 of us who were nominated in my category, and I won. And I was absolutely surprised. And I got up on stage, and it was just one of those things where you're like on a beam, right? And I walked up, and instead of going all the way around and walking up the stairs, I just jumped up onto the stage, and I went up and I gave just an off-the-cuff talk that was just, you know, when you're just doing it right, and because I'm a pretty good talker, but you know, I was up in front of 600, 800 people, whatever it was, and it just came out, and it was like, I can do this, you know. It's like, I'm doing this. And and I knew I was leaving. Other people didn't know I was leaving, but so for me, it was kind of like, okay, this puts a really nice bow on the whole thing. So that was one. The other one that comes to mind is I interviewed Paul McCartney on the phone once, and at the end of the interview, I said, Paul, would you do me a favor? And he said, sure. And I said, would you do my answering machine message? And he said, what? And I said, would you do like, hi, this is Paul McCartney. David can't come to the phone right now. And he said, oh, you cheeky boy. And he said, okay, let's give it a go. And he did my answering machine message, which I had on my phone for a really long time, until my friends were like, we're like done with Paul. Thank you. Take that off. And now, of course, nobody even calls me anymore because we don't use the phone.
Oh my God. How was the interview? How was the moment having a call with Paul McCartney?
It was great. I mean, I love Paul McCartney. The Beatles were I mean, I feel like the Beatles are still sort of the great love of my life. Um, but you know, it's funny when you meet people. It's the same thing as the difference between making an album and having the album in your hand. It's like you sort of think, oh, this is my album and I can show everybody and everybody's gonna be so impressed. And that's just not the sweet kernel of the whole thing. Same thing with meeting famous people. I've met a ton of famous people, and it's much more interesting to listen to their music. And he's great, and I love Paul, and Paul's a good interview and all those things. And my first interview was Patti Smith when I was 19 years old, and I adore her. And it was still, I'd still rather just listen to her music than hang out with her or anything, you know? So it's funny. I mean, the things that you think are what you want and what you think are going to make you happiest and all those things, and they aren't necessarily those things, you know. I mean, it's like when you hear all these famous stars, whether it's Sting or Paul McCartney or whoever, and they have these incredible catalogs of music and they've done all this stuff, and they always ask them what you were most proud of, and they always say their children. You know. Which is, wow. You know, I don't have that, so I'm more proud of my albums, but it's not what you think it's going to be. I guess that's the thing, you know.
All right. Last question for you is, tell us a funny story or moment that happened to you when you were a child at school.
Oh, shit. Were there any?
Did you like school?
Oh, God. I just had a miserable, no. Not really. I mean, literally, all the things that come to mind are all traumatic things. Wow. Yeah, I was pretty bad. I was pretty bullied, teased, tricked, mocked. I mean, that's the stuff I remember. I mean, high school was good before that. I mean, so at least that's good. I mean, a lot of people have a horrible high school experience. What was the question? Was it a funny thing or
yeah, something that a funny story or a moment that you remember when you think about your time at school, something that comes up to your mind?
The thing that comes to mind was this friend of mine. I got in a lot of trouble when I was in high school, like a lot of trouble. I wasn't a bad kid, but I was playful, let's say. Mischievous. Okay. I got in a lot of trouble, like really bad trouble, like cops and oh
wow.
And that reminds me, that's a whole other thing that we won't get into. But I was with a friend and we were standing out in the quad of the school, and we had this clay, and this is what I remember this because he was in the pottery class, and I haven't thought about this for a long time. And he stole basically a whole bunch of clay because we were into stealing things, and we got out, and we go out and we start throwing clay at everything we could find, right? We were in one friend's backyard and we're like throwing it over the fence and hitting cars driving down the street and doing all this stuff. And so we were at school one day and we're like doing the same thing at school. I mean, we were terrible. And one time he threw this one piece and it came down and it just went boom, and it landed on my shoulder. I was standing next to a teacher.
Oh my God.
And it was like, hi. Oh, I've got so many stories. I mean, yeah. There was the time when we went to Disneyland. We got thrown out of Disneyland for doing bad things. I mean, yeah. When I think back on it, it's like I'm gonna have to write about that at some point because it was, yeah. I wasn't a bad boy though. I got good grades, but yeah. I liked my adventures even then. Let's put it that way.
I was about to say you are a good adventure. That's what I call them.
Yeah. Let's call it that. My parents didn't think it was so amusing, but
right.
They survived.
Right, it's not the end yet. Let's play now the word association game. Okay, I'm going to give away Just tell me one
Okay.
word that comes to your mind. Quick thinking, okay?
You are a budding psychologist, aren't you?
I'm trying to be.
So, I hope you are enjoying the interview. Before we do the word association game, don't forget to give a like, don't forget to share this video, and also don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Just click on the button right there. Thank you so much and enjoy the word association game.
Let's start with money.
So what are we supposed to say? It's just the first thing that comes to mind?
Yeah, the first word that comes to your mind related to money.
Possibility.
Family?
Home, friends.
Okay. One word for love.
Sex. First thing that came to my mind.
Okay, and one word for sex.
Love.
I knew you'd say that. How about life?
Adventure.
Politics.
Adventure. No. Politics. Humans.
Okay. Religion.
Possibilities.
One word for fear.
Love.
Friendship.
Adventure.
Okay. Desire.
Adventure. I'm a broken record here. Desire. Desire. All of the above, really.
Okay. Regret.
All of the above. Sex.
Okay.
No. Regret. Regret. Delay.
Okay. Success.
Art.
One word for wish.
Dream. I don't know. That's not. I don't know.
Okay. Whatever comes to your mind. Happiness. One word.
Friends.
One word for Sacramento.
Home.
One word for New York City.
Home.
Home too, yeah?
Yeah.
One word for USA.
Original home, dream home.
Okay.
Berlin, actual home.
USA, one word.
The greatest.
One word for Berlin.
Berlin. Complicated.
One word for journalist.
But the word adventure keeps coming to my head for half of these things. Journalist. Dream again.
Okay. One word for singer.
Lover.
Songwriter, one word.
Magician.
One word for your book, the one you showed me on the camera. One word for that.
Start.
And the last one now, music, one word.
Love.
Amazing. Let's pretend now I'm going to meet your best friend for a coffee, yeah? And I'm going to ask your best friend, tell me the most beautiful thing about David, and tell me something that he still needs to work on, to improve on. What your best friend would say about you.
Oh, jeez. This is a trick question. Yeah, I can tell.
That's the whole point.
What's the best thing they would say about me, not what I would say.
The most beautiful thing about you.
Just one word?
No. A whole sentence.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. The person I'm thinking of would say Daco. And dako is a Japanese word that means to embrace.
Interesting.
And embracing in Japan is not a common thing.
Mm-hmm.
And so for me, saying that implies a lot of warmth and comfort and protection that I give.
Interesting. And something that you need to work on still, what would be?
Focus.
Okay. What's your star sign, David?
Gemini.
Gemini. Okay.
Not surprising.
Let's play now, David, in the magic box, and you can ask me a question. But right, before you ask me the question, tell me what's your favorite German word?
My favorite German word. I mean, the first one that comes to mind is Entschuldigung, which means excuse me.
Okay.
You just end up saying it a lot. Or Dankeschön, but that's 2 words.
Okay. Right, you can ask me a question now.
Okay. So you've said a lot about what you are interested in doing, and I know that you're doing this, but I'm curious what you do as a profession.
Interesting. Right. So I was working in hospitality. Actually, I was working for Disney Cruise Line. You talk about Disney. I was working for Disney Cruise. Yeah, for just one contract a few years ago. But my background, I've been working hospitality in hotels for for the last 10 years, I would say. But right now, I'm working in administration and a receptionist in investment company. Is the fourth biggest company, investment company around the world. And so I've actually, it's a new job. I've been there since January only, but the whole thing about the magic box, I'm working hard to get to work full time just in this beautiful project that I'm doing right now.
Yeah, great. And do you work in the city?
I do. I work in Regent Street.
Yeah. Nice. Wow.
Near Piccadilly Circus station.
When I was talking about the architecture, that's one of the first things that comes to mind is that street. It is absolutely
beautiful,
breathtaking.
Yeah,
breathtaking.
And actually on Friday, when I came out of the tube to go to work, they're already preparing the city for the coronation next week. So there's so many flags already. I thought, oh my God, I felt like, oh wow, it's something happening. So the city itself is already getting ready for the coronation next Monday. So it's already, you can feel around the vibe around the city already.
Wow, yeah, I bet. I was thinking about, I wasn't sure whether that when that was actually happening.
Yeah. So yeah. David, did you enjoy the interview?
Yes, very much. It was very different.
Thank you so much. Thanks for being so kind and sweet and accept my invitation as well and approached you on social media. You straight away said, yes, let's do it. And I'm glad we connected. I'm glad that we had this experience. And thanks so much. I really appreciate your time. And before you go, if you can share a positive message or something that you live by.
Life isn't short, it's long. So take a bottle of water with you.
Oh, that's a nice one.
I don't know, it just came
I like that.
No, but I mean, it really is. That's one thing I've realized. It's like, it's not short. People say life is short. Life is not, I mean, if you're lucky. I have a number of friends who was actually quite short for, but it actually is quite long, and it's an endurance test. And you need to take care of yourself and take care of your relationships with other people so that the journey is worth taking, because it's not worth doing it by yourself.
Beautiful. Actually, I like that. I never thought about that. And it's so true, actually, because as you said, we tend to think, oh, life is short, let's do it, life is short. But actually,
It's
You know,
fucking long.
yeah,
It's really long. I look back, I've lived in Berlin. I mean, I've lived in Berlin for 3 years, and I look back at everything that's happened in my life. So much has happened. I think that people, if they have the same life and they have the same job and they live in the same place, then their life seems short because the days sort of flow. But if you mix it up and if you change things around and you try new things and you do different things, life can be very long and in a good way.
absolutely. I like
Also,
that.
you have to keep yourself in shape so you survive. There's that.
David,
Also, could you also let people know that I have a Substack that I just started where I'm writing a lot of these things and I'm posting my music, I'm doing all different kinds of things. That's sort of it's my new home. I just started it literally like 2 weeks ago. So I don't know if you like link things and stuff like that, but I would love to let people know about that.
Absolutely. You can tell me a little bit about it before we finish the interview. You can tell me a little bit about it so I can promote it.
Oh, okay. Do you know Substack?
No, actually.
It's a relatively new. I think it's actually pushing 8, 9, 10 years, I think. But it's basically a blog that's connected to a mailing list. But you can post video on it, you can post music on it, you can post photos. I'm a writer, but I also do photos and I do music and I do stuff. And so I needed some place that I could collect everything I do together, which is pretty random. I mean, I've got an album that's, love songs, and I've got a book about Japan, and then I'm working on a musical thing, and I'm working on this, so it's like all over the place. And then I also just, as you can tell, I like to get a little philosophical. So I like to write things about, just my thoughts and things like that. And so what it is that you can create a mailing list, and then every time you post to your blog, instead of having to wait till people come to your blog, it goes out in an email.
Wow.
So it's actually really, and then the other thing that's nice that I'm sort of hoping becomes a thing is that people can actually subscribe and pay you $5 a month or whatever you're asking or whatever they want to support you doing it. Or it's like Patreon or things like that, right? So it's a way of building an audience, building a community. I mean, you might want to think about it yourself. I mean, I know you got the Instagram thing, but they can be connected too.
Mm-hmm.
It's the most talking I've done in a week, so.
Oh.
So that's what I'm doing. A Substack. It's called David Watts Barton Abroad because I do everything just David Watts Barton because it's my name and it's relatively unique, right? So.
Mm-hmm.
And then Abroad is the name of the thing. And so it's just, it captures a lot of my travels. Like I said, I was in India and Vietnam for 3 months during the winter, and I'm going to Italy next week or in 2 weeks. And I'll be traveling more this year because that's what I do. And I live in Berlin. So, but I also posting my music and things like that. So it's a cool thing. So people are welcome to come. It's free. You don't have to pay for it, but if you want to, you can. And people have, amazingly. I've had a number of people sign up already to support me in it, which is amazing. And that's something that's like, oh, you do something like that, and then you realize, oh, so people actually do value what I do, which is nice because there's a lot of people doing a lot of things out there, and it's hard to get to people to support you. So. It's a beautiful, valuable thing when it actually does happen.
Amazing. Okay, I'm glad you shared that so people can connect with you right now.
Yeah.
David, thanks so much, and see you sometime in London or in Berlin or anywhere.
Yeah. I'll be there in the beginning of June.
Okay.
Yeah.
Drop me a line. Let me know.
Okay, I will. All right. Take care. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's pleasure is all mine. Enjoy your day, okay? Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, did you like the show? Don't forget to give a like, share it, and also don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you'd like to be part of the show as well, first, subscribe to our channel, and after that, just go to our website, www.williamandthemagicbox.com, and send us a request saying why would you like to be part of the show. And I see you there. Bye-bye. See you next time.